Welcome back to Network Africa. It's now time to look at what's happening in other parts of the continent. Now, just as the United Nations predicted, it was yet another weekend involving mass illegal migration, specifically from Libya via the Mediterranean. The intended destination was Europe or Italy, as the migrants were fleeing the rising violence in Libya, where the Islamic State shot and beheaded 30 Ethiopian Christians in their latest attack on the country. In the latest tragedy, as regards the illegal migration, hundreds are believed to have drowned after their boat sank off Libya at the weekend. The 20-meter-long boat was believed to be carrying up to 700 migrants, and only 28 survivors have been rescued. Based on the situation, the EU foreign and interior ministers are scheduled to meet in Luxembourg to discuss the deaths of migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean from Africa. Some southern European nations say the EU's credibility is now at stake after last year's decision to scale back search and rescue efforts. On its part, the United Nations says the North Africa-Italy route has become the world's deadliest. Joining us now via telephone is our security expert, Captain Ali Umar. Captain, thank you very much for joining us again on the program.
Good evening.
Good evening. Now, the EU has been accused of being too slow in addressing the growing humanitarian crisis in the Mediterranean and is now scrambling to address the issue, which seems to have become so huge. What should have been done in the first place, in your opinion?
When we look at the situation as I speak, you can see it is deteriorating. And looking at what should have been done is looking at it peacefully. When issues like this happen, we expect so much from our foreign member states within the international community as it affects them. But then I say a better and a more holistic way of looking at it is addressing the problem from the nucleus, from the very source. What brings about these migrations or these illegal immigrants? And when you ask that question, you begin to see that at that point from the nucleus, from the source, when these things are allowed to happen, we only end up creating security problems for us and for those at the receiving end of where these refugees or immigrants may be running. Looking at the same scenario of them running, you begin to see opportunities for criminals to cash in on their rather unfortunate status and exploit them. You begin to see questions of safety and security. So, looking at it by and large, we expect much from the other end, as in the receptive countries or the receiving countries. We also expect much from the international organizations will be involved, but then more is expected from the source where these problems start ab initio.
Now, Captain, Libya does seem to be at the center of this Mediterranean crisis, with, two rival governments battling for control of the country, and now the Islamic State militants reigning terror there. What is the best approach for addressing the Libyan crisis, which will obviously affect the Mediterranean crisis to a large extent?
Can you come again, please?
I'm saying that Libya seems to be at the center of this Mediterranean crisis, with two rival governments and also the advent of the Islamic State militants. I'm asking what the best approach would be in addressing the crisis in Libya, which will ultimately affect the Mediterranean crisis.
Yes. Basically, if you look at the crisis in Libya, the crisis in Libya itself actually is a feeder or a source of these illegal immigrants or refugees. Much has to be done by the international community to ensure that Libya is stabilized at all costs. And the reason is simple. There is what I want to call a mutuality of effects when these immigrants or refugees begin to find themselves stranded between their home countries and the destination country, if I can call it that. The security concern here is this. People, if we don't handle this properly, whether at home or internationally, will exploit the rather unbalanced emotional and psychological situation of these refugees and turn them to other illegal uses that will not go well for us. I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to say. Corruption and those who loot public offices, if not properly handled at home and abroad, will begin to give those who are in possession of looted funds the power or muscle to actually sponsor acts that will put the countries that are after them in situations that will make them actually a bit very, very cornered. Let me be explicit here. People who have a lot of money in their possession and want to fight back can actually sponsor or sympathize with terrorists. Now take the refugees, for example. They are actually leaving from one place to go to another. They are bitter about where they are coming from, and they're not getting any better from where they are going to. These people become psychological prospects for those who may want to brainwash, re-indoctrinate, or even exploit them and turn them against those areas they may perceive or those countries they may perceive to be remotely or directly involved with their present situation. So you can see right now that it's not about anyone doing much or anyone doing less, but it's about everyone doing much from all sides.
Captain Aliyu Umar, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Captain Aliyu Umar is a security expert. He's been speaking to us concerning the case of illegal migration. Now to other stories. It's 2 days to the retrial of the two Al Jazeera journalists, Mohammed Fahmy and Bahir Mohammed. Their trial date has been postponed about 5 times now, and we will definitely be keeping our eyes fixed on the developments in that case. In the meantime, we'll be looking at other happenings in the North African country. Just this morning, an Egyptian court sentenced 22 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to death over an attack on a police station in the town of Kirdasa after the army removed Islamist President Mohamed Morsi from power back in 2013. One other defendant, who is a juvenile, was given a 10-year sentence. A lawyer for the convicted men has said that they would appeal. Still in Egypt, an Egyptian army captain and 2 other soldiers were killed by a roadside bomb in Rafah near the border with the Palestinian Gaza Strip this morning. There are very few details concerning this attack, but responsibility has been claimed via a Twitter message by Sinai Province, which is an Egyptian affiliate of the ultra-hardline militant group Islamic State. Police have confirmed that a suicide bomb attack on a United Nations vehicle in Garowe, which is the main city in Somalia's Puntland region, has led to the deaths of 7 people. Sadly, 4 of the United Nations staff were among the dead, and the police commander Ahmed Abdullahi Samatar says that he believes that one of the bodies belongs to a man who blew himself up. Al-Shabaab, which is battling Somalia's government for control of the country, has said that it carried out that attack. The UN Special Representative in Somalia, Nicholas Kay, has condemned the action and said he was shocked and appalled by the loss of life. Al-Shabaab, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, is also battling the Somali government for control of the country, and at least 13 people have died over the past 2 days in a series of attacks which have been blamed on Al-Shabaab. Well, that's where we'll leave it on this episode of Network Africa. Many thanks for watching. As always, we'd like to hear from you here on the program, so feel free to reach out to us either via email or Twitter. The address and handle are on your screen right now. And as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Cynthia Are.